Okay, so we're back. I put some code in there that I had already written before. We will walk through exactly what it is that I've done. But as you can see, I have a post data method um, that I just inserted. And the main problem is we have a database, but we do not have a table yet. So each database has multiple tables, and we're going to create a table today before we continue on with the coding. Now you can create a table directly from your program. However, I'm not interested in writing the code for that. All I'm interested in is connecting to a table, putting data in the table, updating data from a table, and getting data from a table. That's all I want to do. That's all I want to focus on. Like I said, this is really just as practical as I can get. So we're going to cheat a little bit. It's not really cheating. You can create your tables any way you want. I just couldn't think of an application where I would be creating a table from my application. Chances are you're going to be creating applications connecting to other databases that already have predefined tables set up, so, and rules and everything for you to connect to them. So that's what I'm focusing on. Anyway, rant. Let's go and create our table. So here we are at our portal, and then I go to our database that we had, and then we're just going to go to our query editor, and I've been playing around with it so you can see some spikes on that graph there. Log in using that password, that fun little password that we created. I literally just went to the internet and got this SQL query to create the table, so that's what I'm going to use. And then we're going to click run, and then it says query succeeded. And so we're going to look and we say, oh, there's our person's table, and make sure we got all our little columns set up, person, last name, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's go back to our code. Now, if you notice, we have a red line here. It's causing our entire app to kind of crash on us in a way. That's why we got all this red. So you can pause it here and just ask yourself, why do you think that you have this red line here? Pause it and think about it. Came back. Primary thing you would notice is we have a variable called hold connection. So one of the questions you should have asked yourself is, what does it want? It wants something, okay? It needs something in order to function. Well, we have this hold connection variable, and the type of variable it is a connection type, right? Remember in the last video, we had changed all of our methods, right? Because we realized we didn't really need most of the stuff that we had because our code would run either way without it. We didn't need it at the time. But now we need it again, just like we talked about in the last video. We need to return something to this hold connection variable so that everything else in this post data method can work. So we got to go back and change the thing. So we're going to change this from void to connection because that's the type we need to change. Now we have to make sure we return things. So if it succeeds, we're going to return, can't type. But what are we returning? Well, we can just return this driver.manager.get connection, and that will work. But I'm going to go back to our old code. We're going to have a connection type. We're going to call connection. We're going to set equal to this. And we're going to return that connection variable. Okay. So we returned the connection. What else do we need to do? We need to return null. Now, what's the problem here? Because this happens sometimes. I am outside of the function, okay? It still wants me to return something. Sorry, I'm trying to do the cut. It still wants me to return something, but where I had put my statement, I was outside of the function when I did it. So now I'm just inside this function where that red line is, as you can see, and I'm going to put it there, and everything works just like we expected to. Now, if we having any more problems, nothing so far. So let's just walk through our post data function and see what's going on. So as you recall, right, we called the connection function. We made our database connection. We returned that connection back here. That's why I have this new variable called hold the connection, because I'm going to hold that connection and I'm going to use it. Then we have our try catch statement, right? Inside our try, we're going to try to do certain things. In this case, we're going to try to put data into our table. So in order to do that, we need something called a prepared statement. That is a class that is from this java.sql package that we imported. So we have a prepared statement type, and the variable name is post data. That's what I'm calling it. And we're going to set it equal to that connection that we got, right? And we're going to call another function called prepare statement. And inside this prepare statement, we're going to put in an SQL query. So we're going to put that SQL query. It's going to insert it into our table, okay, via that connection that we established. Okay, that's ultimately what's happening. And our SQL queries are like other SQL queries. We're going to say insert into. Okay, persons is the table that we created. Last name, first name. These are the columns of the table that we're going to target. Okay, so that's syntax. And then these are the values that we're going to insert into it. We're going to insert for last name, Shore, first name, Jersey. And it is very important that you use these single quotations, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But that's ultimately what the syntax looks like. We're targeting multiple columns. So that's why we have this values keyword here, and we're going to insert multiple values into these multiple columns. Okay, I'm going to comment this out. So we make the connection, we have the query, we insert it into everything, and now we have everything locked into this post data variable. Now, as of right now, because I commented out that code, we're not utilizing this, right? It says it's never used. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize it. I'm going to say post data dot execute update, and this is the function inside this prepared statement class that I'm going to call. I'm passing all this stuff into this function so that it can actually execute and update the SQL database that we connected to. Okay, that's what's happening. And just for good measure, even though we have a timeout function here for our connection, I just went ahead and said hold connection, the connection that we established, and I closed it before we exit out of this function. Okay, now all we got to do is call this function so that we can actually utilize it. So I'm going to go post data, and that's it. But there's a problem. Now remember, we threw an exception here. Okay, because this function is throwing an exception. Anything that calls this function also has to throw an exception. Right? We talked about that in the previous video too. So we're going to hit run. And we're going to see what's popping. Okay, so it says connection established. Data has been inserted. Let's check this out. I'm just going to hit refresh. And I'm going to delete this query, and I'm going to go to my tables. I'm going to select, I just click on these things right here, and it just says select top 1000 rows just to see if anything was inserted. And sure enough, we did. We inserted Jersey Shore into our table. And we're going to do that again. We're going to insert, I'm going to change this one to that, and I'm going to run it again. Run that query one more time. And sure enough, we've inserted data into our persons table on our heaven help me database. All right, so that's it for now. We will be back and we will go on to how to update data. See you later.